These people may or may not know some of the aspects related to your office. Again, depending upon how big the mothership is that you work within, you might be a small piece, rarely seen. You might be a primary piece. So you might not need to show them your organizational construct, but you might need to show them that you have some sort of organizational chart. They may not know that you have a particular directed mission, vision, and values for your office and your practice and what you do. So you want to make sure that they know those sorts of things, right? They may not know that you're involved in certain activities, like looking at diversity. So at our institution, civility and diversity is a big issue right now and has been for about 2 years. And we're looking at what is the diversity of our staff and our team and our advisory board. And then now we're moving into what is the diversity of our activity directors. And we fear that if we can actually get at the real diversity of our attendees, we would be embarrassed to find out that we're primarily educating 65-year-old white men. I would find that to be a problem, even though that may be a predominant component of what physicians are, but we want to have interprofessional teams. We want to have a much broader construct, so that would be we are not really meeting one of our aspects of mission. And again, this resonates with the leadership, that they've set civility and diversity as an issue, and even at the little CME office in the basement, they're taking it so seriously, they're looking at their own internal diversity, as well as the diversity of who they interact with and how they, and who they educate. That really resonates quite loudly with leadership. Good way of showing you get it in value. They may not know that you have standardized processes, right? Depending upon where you fall within that organizational construct again, they may think you do, but they may not know. I can tell you in many shops that I travel to across, again, medical schools, teachings, professional societies, some of the medical education companies we partner with, etc., a lot of the senior people only hear when there's a problem. So they think, based upon random stories of complaints, that you don't have any standardized way of dealing with anything. Everything is like the donor world of just a complete unique solution for each and every circumstance. And they need to know that you have a standard process of how you deal with what you present and what you do as a... They need to know that you're focused at what? At continuous improvement, right? So these sorts of slides and informations can show them how you participate in audits, you have internal and external controls, how you're a good shepherd of tax and travel issues related to what the organization does. Again, it may not apply to everybody in the room. You may have an organization where those are ferreted out of your CME office. You may be in an organization where the CME office is controlling these for CME activities. And so some of these will or will not apply to you. That's the point of trying to drive such a broad discussion, right? You can look at process redesign. CRC stood for a customer center that we created. SWOT is just the standard strength, weakness, and opportunity and threat analysis, etc. Partnership issues, legal issues again, and then the metrics and benchmarking piece. I'm not sure why we didn't go back. Give me a second. I'm going to skip future issues right now and just touch base on that at the end. So I said to you that it's a strategic asset. Again, when you're presenting it, you want to move from what you've done to determine that value to present it in a way that they can understand it. So I would present, if I was presenting my shop, right, I would present what? Related to things like accreditation status. I would talk about what we got, how we got it, in our last cycle, since we're now under review right now. We don't have the new cycle, but in the last one we got exemplary and what we were included in, and then I would launch into how we played partnership and a role within the LCME in a very significant way this last time. I would present the data that more physicians interact with Hopkins and other people in a given year. And I don't know that we create any brand issue. I can tell you we could hurt the brand, so we minimally maintain the brand through this. We clearly contribute some. And then the marketing, you know, how many brochures do you mail in a year? You're not really sending them out to market your institution, but the net effect is that they are the institution's name, logo, or brand put out there repetitively for people to look at. You might look at the number of courses that you do. If this was part of your mission, is to train people outside of your organization as opposed to maybe a professional society that might be looking more internal. You'd want to talk about how many courses and what you do and how many attendees you have, and again, benchmarking it to data that you can find so that they can understand where you fall in the spectrum. I've already talked about referrals. I've already talked about licensure and the sort of data that you could present in terms of the impact for them, so I won't repeat that. Many of us work in an environment, again, that has sort of the tripartite mission of research, education, and patient care. And I think in our own way, everybody in the room does at some level. So let's just talk about those in a little more detail, right? You might talk about specific projects that you've done in research or that you're getting involved in, or partnerships and consortiums that you're doing at the national level. In our case, it was participating with an art grant, it was submitting additional grants. We were able to present data on how we diversified institutional research funding. We looked at the issue of recruitment into research trials. So again, a secondary or tertiary gain, physicians who came to CME have a tendency to refer patients to trials or not. One of those things that a lot of people go, what a dangerous thought to have, but it's an interesting secondary or tertiary event. And then we were able to say that the data back when I made this slide, that only 26% of academic centers were involved in research, and we were one of them. That was important at a place like Hopkins that we did fall into that group. You might be in an organization in which it's important to be in the 74%, I don't know. But again, benchmark yourself and make your case. We talked about our education, like we scheduled conferences. We talked about our involvement with the Dean and CFO on QI, PI, and risk management on the steering committees. We talked about all the institutional training pieces that we are a part of, the faculty development aspects ranging from speaking to writing to presenting to professionalism issues, ethics and decision making, and we talked about the ability to support promotion portfolios. We could even look at some of our activities related to patient outcome and ask, at least based upon the attendees, did they change their practice and how did that happen? And so this is just a graph showing that we set for that particular activity that we thought that 70% of attendees, we tracked them over multiple years and were able to see that for those two courses that we did this particular project in, that we not only were above 70, but stayed above 70. A very important sort of message again. You could get into a very specific issue. How did you do things on campus if you're a teaching hospital or an academic center, or through your members in a professional society? Very specific. We had 10% reduction in wait times. We had 20% more people get their diabetes medicine correct, or whatever the variable might be that you looked at in your particular PI CME projects, or just CME projects, whether they carried the PI label or not. You might do other things. In my case, I did, so this was important, so I don't have it up here to sort of toot me, I just bring it up again, trying to tweak your mind. Your organization might find it of value that you participate in the United Way, that you're a representative, or that you are participating as a board member of the Breast Cancer Association in your community, or whatever, Special Olympics, right? They will see you as reaching out and doing other things. These might be things you do. It might be that you're part of their organization, contributes to toys for tots at Christmas time, and etc. These are values that other people, again, see this organization through, that they may find important to them, and you might find important to have them understand. And there might be regulation issues. If you're a teaching hospital or you have that component related to CMS, related to this aspect of it, or down into the FPPE and OPPE issue. And again, in our sense there were, so I was able to then describe very specifically how we had partnered with the VPMA, Vice President for Medical Affairs, to do specific projects, both in identifying the criteria for FPPE and then how to set up projects for those physicians that needed OPPE advancement, that needed interventions. You might have financial issues again. And my center, I'm not saying it applies to yours, the fiscal year and the course year don't match at all. This is very unusual for them, and they have a very hard time trying to figure that out, right? It's an academic medical center, like most universities. The fiscal year and the school year are in sync with each other. Now I have 3-year activities that are crossing, of which I may go into profound debt building the activity to see the money come at a milestone farther in, maybe through registrations near the end, or I might be seeing grant money come in early and have lots of funds, and the expenses are occurring at a secondary point that could cross fiscal years. This can confuse them, and so they have a good opportunity to let them know in advance that they're going to encounter something they may or may not encounter. That's sort of useless. Sorry. Okay. So the last just 2 minutes worth, I just want to point out that there's other issues you do in your CME office, again, that bring value that you may not have thought about. So state licensure-based issues, providing that to your local physician community, again, whether they're directly your physicians or just live in your community. You have the issue of managing things like contracting issues that you have to deal with, email and fax blast laws, tax regulation, copyright management. I can tell you when I finish this slide, the CFO at the institution said, I had no idea that the CME office was doing so many things. I thought you basically signed some people up, they came to a room and a lecture was given and they left. I had no idea that you were from soup to nuts involved and helping manage everything that we do related to these forms of education. So it was quite useful. We were able to talk about how we partner with all sorts of people in terms of grants. Again, very important, not a complete list, just trying to pull some names out. Don't go, uh-oh, my name's not on there. That wasn't the point of it. Some of the groups we had worked with back when I first made this slide. Again, just trying to show the diversity of what we do as an organization. Okay? It's important to us to get quality education out, not to have a specific partner driven at a specific margin. And then I would encourage you when you're presenting it to finish with a focus at where you're going. Okay? What is the future that you're going to really try to get to through your CME office? For us, we want to see even tighter integration with QI and PI risk management, with professional development and the Practice Association than we've had in the past. We have significant involvement, but we'd like to see much tighter integration there. We want to, and we are involved in the Simulation Center, but don't have many yet CME activities. We really believe that that's going to be one of the hot issues of the future, whether they be in standalone sim centers or in some of these now network sim centers that have their own accreditation process and status as well. I wanted them to know that we have already tried to, through this value mechanism, to look at the return on education. The return on education, okay? Then we've tried to, through the value mechanism, to also discuss today a return on objectives, okay, of the organization. The real hard issue in this industry is to look at the return on investment, and I needed to make the case that although we're going to look at that a lot of the investment issues, again, bring back values that are not classically measured, and that they were going to need to be open to either an ROI that might look negative, but intellectually know that there were these other values that filled in the gap. Or they were going to need to work with us to create a valuation system for those other values, okay, in order to add to the system. And it gave me the opportunity at the end to ask them if they thought they would accomplish more if we were actually at the table while the strategic plan for the institution was being created, as opposed to secondarily being come to and saying, here's the strategic plan, can you help us get the message out?